Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Ryan Wheeler, United Residential Mortgage. Hey, today I'm going to go over points. What are points and does it make sense to buy points? There's a lot of confusion surrounding the idea of points, and I'm hearing it more than normal right now just because interest rates are so high. When they went up middle of last year and jumped into the sixes and sevens and now still in the sixes in some cases. A lot of people are asking these questions. How do I buy points? And does it make sense to buy points? And should I buy points? And it's a great question. And theoretically, it sounds like it would make sense. I'm going to buy my interest rate down lower so my payment's lower. But there's a cost involved to do that. And does that cost make sense? That's what we're going to explore today. I'm going to show you what points are and how to figure out the break-even point to see whether or not it makes sense to buy points. In a high interest rate environment, believe it or not, contrary to popular belief, especially a higher interest rate environment where we know we're probably at the peak in the future, holds a recession and lower inflation, which means lower interest rates a year from now, potentially. So with that said, maybe buying points doesn't make sense. Maybe we're able to refinance before we break even on paying the points for that lower rate, and we could have got a lower rate on the refi than what we did buying points. So I'll explain. Watch this. So I've got a PowerPoint presentation pulled up here for you. I didn't do it to bore you to death. I just wanted to have some visualization for you while I'm going over this stuff and kind of explaining the numbers to you so you could see what I'm talking about. So points, should you buy points and does it make sense? What are quote unquote points? So points are, the technical term is discount points. And no, it's not necessarily a discount on your loan cost. It's actually the opposite. It's going to cost you additional, but it is a discount on the interest rate. So you're paying for that, but you are paying for that discount. So discount points, aka points, are a type of permanent rate buy down, which is different from a temporary rate buy down. And essentially it's just essentially prepaid interest. You're going to pay a certain percentage of the loan amount to acquire a lower interest rate. So for example, when I say 1 point, that's 1% of your loan amount, not 1% off your interest rate. So for example, a $300,000 loan, 1 point is what? $3,000. So $3,000 in additional costs. So if you've got $5,000 in closing costs, you're going to have an additional $3,000 in cost to buy that 1 point down off your interest rate. So how does it impact the interest rate is probably what you're asking, because that's the biggest confusion, right? The confusion comes in because people believe that points are the rate itself, which isn't correct, unfortunately, on a permanent buy down. So when you're buying points, it's just the cost of it, and it's buying your rate. It does buy it down, but it's not equivalent to 1% off your interest rate. So hear me out. So for that $300,000 loan amount, if you buy 1 point, that's 1% of $300,000. That's $3,000, right? Well, that $3,000 may only buy your actual interest rate down 1/4 to 0.5%. So 0.25 to 0.5%. And that's just a range. It's not a fixed number like that. It's not that simplistic, but that's generally the range it falls in. Like today, it's probably around 0.5%, right? So for example, a rate with no points may be 6.5. These aren't necessarily the rates today, folks. I'm just kind of giving you an idea because rates are in the sixes somewhere floating around, but just for example purposes. So a rate with no points is 6.5%. The rate with 1 point would be 6 to 6.25. Make sense? So 1 point is going to cost, that's 1%. $3,000 is going to buy your rate down from 6.5 to 6%, 6.25. So again, just kind of gives you an idea or a good range. So now, does this make sense to pay it? Depends on, and that depends, really. It depends on the break-even point and how long you're going to keep the loan. And so the break-even point is basically where the difference in the lower payment with the lower rate covers the cost of that point. And so here, let me explain real quick. So here's the example: $300,000 loan amount at 6.5%. That's with no points. The payment with just principal and interest, not total payment with taxes and insurance, $1,896 before escrow, right? So $1,896. So that $300,000, you pay the point, get your rate down to 6%. the loan amount or the payment, I'm sorry, is now $17.98 principal and interest. So that's a difference of $98 a month, right? So you got a payment difference of $98 a month. So you paid $3,000 to get your payment down $98 a month. And so how do we determine that break even point? So this is wrong here. I apologize. It says 48, but the monthly savings is $98 a month. The cost of the point was $3,000. And so you just do the math and divide that $98 into the 3,000. So $3,000, $98 a month in savings from that point that I paid for, $3,000. When do I break even on it? When do I get that money back that I spent to buy my rate down lower? And that break even point is 30.6 months. 30.6 months is the break even point. That is 2.5 years, 2.55 technically years. So I don't even break even on the cost of that until I've kept this loan for 2.5 years. Every month after that is pure savings. So $98 a month, savings every month thereafter. So if I keep it a year after that, so after 3.5 years, that's about $100. I saved $1,200 in interest, right? But I have to keep that loan for 2.5 years before I even break even. And so conclusion here, if your break even point is 2.55 years, then that means you have to keep that loan for just that long. We have to keep it that long, before you break even on it. So does it make sense? Are you going to sell the house or refinance before that 2.5 years is up? If you do, you're wasting money. It's a waste to buy the point. And in a market like now, so in the current market that we're in with higher interest rates, the expectation based on technical data, which is based on inflation and recession, where we're going to be at in a recession in early 2024, it makes a lot less sense right now, today, April 2023, to buy points on your mortgage, because we know that rates are at their peak and they're destined to come down. And most of the professional mortgage-backed security analysts, not talking heads or general financial analysts, ones that watch the mortgage-backed securities, which determine the interest rates, all predict that by 2024, rates could be a full percent or 1.5% lower than where they are today. So if you buy a house this year and you refinance a year from now, or let's say this month, you only have to have your loan. Once you make 6 payments on your loan, you're eligible for a refi. So if you buy your house this year and then this time next year you're eligible for a refi and you pay points, you're going to waste thousands of dollars. So instead, it makes more sense to pay no points, and then this time next year you would call me, for example. I would do the refinance for you. We would do a low to no cost refi, and get you into an interest rate that's potentially 1% to 1.5% lower than where you're at now. If you bought that point and you paid that extra money, you're only going to buy your rate down, like I said, maybe let's say 0.5%. So you could save more on the refi. Now you could buy the points and you could do the refi and you could do all that, but financially you're still throwing some money away by doing that. So in my eyes, I don't recommend people buying points right now in this current market, because we know where it's at. Now on the refi, it may make a little more sense, because if rates have come down into the low 5s and then we want to buy points into the 4s at that point, because you know that a rate into the 4s is something that's going to be long-term. You're going to keep that loan for a much longer period of time, unless in your head we work the break-even point up again and you realize I'm going to be selling in 2-3 years. If that's the case, then yes, you don't want to do it. We would rework the break-even point, see how much it costs, see what the payment differential was. But buying points on the refi when rates are lower, because of a recession and lower inflation, it might make more sense long-term in the home. Or if you're doing a 15-year loan and you know you're going to keep that house long-term, that could definitely make sense to buy points. So hope you found this video helpful, guys. Thanks a lot. Hopefully this explains and helps bring some clarity to the situation, because I know there's a lot of confusion out there. But if you have any questions whatsoever, please call me or text me. Set up a time to talk, 270-228-0075, or shoot me an email, ryan@unitedres.org, and let's set up a time to talk. after this video, it should pull up my information that I just went over. But you can also go to schedulewithryan.com and it'll pull up my calendar, schedule a time. Thanks a lot. Hope you found this helpful. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.